Meditation Seminar Week 7.
Well, actually, I want to do some movement exercises today also to help with this experience of Dhyana. Because Dhyana is really very much unlike the other practices in that it's an accomplishment, an achievement. It's not a practice. And so you really only know it in the experience of it, both Dhyana and Samadhi. They aren't things you do. They are something you experience as a result of preparatory practices. So I'm going to try to do some movement work that will maybe help a little bit with that. But I'm going to first sort of continue with the picture I gave last week of the whole relationship between the lokas and the koshas, because really, in the end, if you have been effective with pranayama and chakradharana, and you have had some success in overcoming this boundary between your etheric expression and the astral energy coming from the world that trying to resolve. Because remember, that's the definition of the struggle, is that when you incarnate, you have this astral light, which is produced as a result of your incarnation through the chakras, or in anthroposophical terms, through the planets. And then after you have incarnated, there's been conception and development begins to happen. Now that development, of course, is a combination of three things. It's a combination of the astral low energy that was generated as you incarnated, and now that higher astral loka, which is sometimes referred to as the model body energy, is now trying to mold the genetic stuff into who you need to be to fulfill your destiny. And you can say there's this dialogue between the two, which is very much determined, the outcome is very much, well, can be very much determined by environment. And so, older teachers and parents trying to teach out of that perspective to bring an environment which is going to encourage the model body influence over the hereditary body influence, so that those three, the etheric and astral and ego bodies, emerge in a way that is healthy and prepares the human being to then work with, see, the model body energy is in the higher chakras, but the world itself coming at us is the astral light that we're prepared for ourselves as incarnated beings. And we still need to take the help of that to be able to continue our journey. But in our development, in our expression, where there's growth, but there's also just learning. And some of that learning is such that it puts us at odds with the resources that we have prepared for ourselves in Devakan. We have prepared by incarnating in a certain place in a certain time. In a sense, that's an expression of the resources that we have prepared for ourselves in heaven or Devakan. But in development, we kind of forget and move out of relationship with those resources which we brought in with us, and we create boundaries between ourselves and those resources. And so, in a sense, sadhana, spiritual practice, is about overcoming those errors in our development so that we can take the help of those resources that are coming back at us from the astral light. And that's, so we're in that place where those members of the body have emerged, and now there's a question of whether or not you will go into the soul realm, where you will fully develop the sentient intellectual soul and consciousness. So remember, we are by grace the vibration at the Anahata chakra There's no boundary area there. So we will manifest our humanity by the fact that there isn't any boundary. That vibration just happens to be the one that is the one that is generated. The incarnation is the one that actually collapses and pulls your expression up to human existence. And so, but the lower ones after that, though, there are boundaries. There's a boundary at the Minapura, or and the Antimanasa, and the Kamamaya, and the Swadhisthana. The boundary zone is developed, and our living is an expression of those that boundary zone. And so, what we want to do now is overcome those boundaries, and that's what pranayama and chakra dhyana, more chakra dhyana than pranayama, but they're sort of, as I mentioned earlier, two sides of a coin, two polarities in what is necessary. In one, you have the situation where you are working with the astral content and trying to clarify the koshas, that is through chakra dhyana. In the other one, you're working more directly with the etheric forces and trying to create a rhythm of breathing in the etheric that allows for it to be a better organ of perception of the astral world. And so the two of those are working together to strengthen your capacity to reorient your consciousness to the higher model body resources, and so that your growth can continue. I use distinguished development has two elements: it's learning and growth. Learning can take you in any direction, but growth is in particular, I'm referring to those efforts which achieve progress, spiritual progress. So what happens now is we have to achieve a state which allows that boundary to dissolve. And that state is the state of Dhyana, the state of meditation. You have to enter into that state. When you enter into the state of meditation, a stillness takes place. A stillness is achieved. And it's from that place of stillness that the opposition to the astral light diminishes. And you're able to take help of those resources and continue your spiritual journey. Now, we talk about being an ascension, and this is all in the soul realm. So all of this work with the astral light that's down at the lower two koshas or chakras is all about soul work, and it has to do with developing developing consciousness, and developing consciousness in those three aspects that Steiner talks about: sentient consciousness, intellectual consciousness, and what he calls a consciousness soul experience, which is really that sense of your own consciousness, witnesship, the ability to be aware of your own consciousness. When we are conscious as sentient beings, which means we are conscious as beings who are aware of what comes to us through the senses. So we're conscious in that. We're aware of those things. I'm aware of color and Fred. I'm aware of all these things that come through my senses. I am a conscious being in that. I'm also a conscious being in my intellect. I'm aware of my ideals and my thoughts. Now I'm saying you become a conscious being of your own I. You become conscious, consistently conscious of your own I. And that's the consciousness soul phase, being conscious of your own I. Now, we will, in a relative sense, go through these periods, these soul periods. But the true clarification of the koshas that are associated with these experiences doesn't necessarily take place. I mean, it's all kind of relative. We're interacting across that boundary zone to a certain degree, but to a great degree, though, we are still not really fully advantaging our spiritual life of those resources, and that's what the achievement of meditation is all about. And so we are attempting now to move to take the help of those resources first from the Minapura, in the astral realm, our astral body. And that's kind of interesting because the three emerge in the opposite order of the order in which you actually get ego attention to them. The etheric emerges and the astral emerges, and then the ego emerges. Now the ego now becomes first attentive in the astral to the emotion and ideal life, and you can get clarification in that realm first. And getting clarification in that realm is to move through the sentient soul level, is to achieve that sentient soul freedom. And then the ego would achieve clarification in the etheric. And really, that's the realm of the intellectual soul, when you have clarification in the etheric. And so that's what's depicted up here. And you can see where these boundaries are between, well, on the previous page I showed boundaries. Now the boundaries have been passed through. And because of that, you can see the arrow has moved up first through the one that's labeled sentient soul, by virtue of resolving the astral energy of the blue, and then the etheric, the red is resolved, and it moves up through the red above, the intellectual soul. So those are that's the first level of achievement that can happen in Dhyana, is that you achieve enough self-witnessing of your ego forces that you're able to recognize what Dhyana refers to as your genius, which means that you begin to be aware of your relationship with the astral light that is coming, back to aid you in this lifetime. You begin, you know that, out of your witnesship, and out of that witnesship, out of that